Katie? Oh, she's with a visiting artist.
You good to go?
Oh, yeah.
So this is a space where we are installing Tough Stuff Women in the American Glass Studio.
Great. Can we go in?
Yep, absolutely. I'll take you in. We'll meet Tami, who is the lead curator.
Awesome.
Hey, Tami.
Michael, welcome into the gallery. Thanks, Marisa.
Thank you for letting me infiltrate your very busy installation in the gallery.
It is really busy right now. It's literally buzzing.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's good for me to take a moment and kind of pause in this space. So this exhibition, Tough Stuff Women in the American Glass Studio, we're bringing out really early work from the 1960s and 70s made specifically by women that have never been shown before to try to show the presence of women in the earliest years of the studio glass movement.
Very cool. What I'm learning through this video that we're doing is that museums are really driven by storytellers.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a wonderful curator and bringing some of these stories to the forefront.
Yeah.
And it's an untold part of the American studio glass story and history. So I'm excited to be here and get a preview and behind the scenes look.
Yeah, it is an immense privilege to carry these stories. And here they're, in many ways, we're looking at objects, but I see people as I move around this space. So any chance I get to talk through it and share about it and share the voices and to broaden what we know about American studio glass, that is what all of this work is grounded in. Their voices, their stories.
Yeah. How do you decide where things go?
Yeah.
I see we've got a blueprint.
I know we're looking at a map here, and
yeah,
we're kind of surrounded in the gallery space. So we created a few themes to help guide folks in, but every case is organized by an artist, and you'll see maybe one of their earliest first gathers as a student to some later more accomplished work. So we're really trying to show the start, and for some artists, their most recent work that they might have made in 2025 to show where they started and where they've come to really broaden that narrative.
What's amazing is that I know that I have very few of my first things, and the things that I do, they're at my mom's house.
Right, right.
My mom has them somewhere probably
Yeah.
still, but it's very cool that you have some of those early.
Sure, and I will say the artists were really hesitant. They're like, you want what? But to me, those first pieces demonstrate presence. They show that these women were in those first university glass programs building the very first furnaces, and that's a narrative that no one has really shared. There were all types of students doing that, but very much so women were right on the cusp in doing that. And then because of learning that, they went and built their own studios. And that's also something that's never really been shown more clearly. So that's why those humble starts, you know, I'm going like this, but there's a range, and it's not just blowing. We're talking about flame working, fusing, slumping, all different kinds. And that's also an important narrative we're trying to stretch, is it wasn't just glass blowing. Artists were looking at the medium with such plurality and creativity.
Yeah. So we're going to hang a piece today while we're here. There's also a lot of cases, and I know that these are separated by a couple different broader sort of
themes.
You
got it. Yeah, so the section behind me here is all about artists gathering ideas from within. So from within the self. They're really driven by the personal and the narrative. So you're often seeing the figure or scenes of home life, for example. A lot of these women in the 60s and 70s were trying to understand what does it mean to be an independent artist, but yet also a mother. And so a lot of times you see chairs and table settings, for example, but also just really beautiful, honest work. And then the section that's in front of us here, these are a range of artists who are inspired by nature, either responding to it by directly emulating it and showing exactly what nature looks like, or taking the idea of it and making something entirely new. Like Mary Bayard White is interested in the environmental crisis, and so she's creating ideas of glass houses to think about sustainable building and not depleting forest of wood. So there's quite the range of beauty to reality in this section. And then at the very end, where we're gonna go, where the mobile is gonna be hung, is a section about color. It's called The Shapes of Color. And so how artists approach color in glass there's such a range and diversity. So I'm excited to step into that one.
And Marisa, we have the piece delivered safely.
It's here, made it into the gallery. Let's go unwrap it and install it.
Great, I'll watch.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, Michael,
Yes.
one more thing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts about this exhibition. So you know how I was talking about this exhibition is really built on telling stories. Well, where do you go to do that? You go to the artists themselves. So a lot of this project, I've traveled around the country listening, looking beyond what's published. And so really spending time and sitting with these artists. And that fuels everything that we're doing here. And I'm so excited that when people come to visit, they will actually get to hear the voices of the artists. We are implementing something new where you press a button near the work and a directional speaker from above is just going to play a little clip of the artist talking about their work, what motivates them, and what drives them in their creative work. So there'll be 8 places throughout the exhibition. And then towards the end, when people are leaving, we have a video clip that's going to show bits and pieces of the oral histories that we've been gathering with our Raycow Research Library team of these women. About 10 of them will be profiled there. So their voices will carry you through the exhibition.
Oh, that's so cool. What a way to make it a more immersive experience.
Yeah.
Brilliant, I'm excited to hear them.
So you got to take time with each of them. Press the button and you just get to stand and look at the work and listen.
Perfect.
All right, to the mobile.
Okay, let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, here we go. Wait, you've met Lindsay?
Yes, I've seen Lindsay at the warehouse.
Whenever you see something in our collections or storage that has like the most immaculate packing, it is Lindsay. So I just want to honor her craft and how amazing she is. So
It's so good. I checked this box out at the warehouse and it was like, it's so cool.
as we're there unpacking this, which takes so much time, and just look at the intricacy of this box and the crate and how it needs to hold this work, and why it's in this exhibition. First of all, we are in the section that's all about color, and as you can already see, it's pretty colorful.
A fitting place.
Yeah. And a mobile. A mobile is suspended. It carries a just different environment. It holds space and it has more movement. And it felt really important to include this piece. But I have a cool story. When I was first doing the research on this exhibition and looking at women artists in our collection who made work in the 60s and 70s, we have work by Frances Stewart Higgins is the artist here. She was based in Chicago. She actually started experimenting with glass in the 40s and 50s.
Oh, wow.
Just like playing around with fusing and creating molds. And actually on view in the exhibition is one of the very first molds and glass pieces that she experimented with and fusing. And around that time, she was just using bits and pieces to make other stuff. And one of those was a mobile. And on the label that we'll have in the gallery is a picture of her standing with one of the first mobiles that she made just out of scrap pieces of glass. But this was in the 50s.
Yeah, this preceded the whole, American studio glass movement.
Exactly. So Frances was clever, creative, and brilliant, and just took to glass as just this creative medium that you could do anything with. Unfortunately, these early mobiles from the 1950s don't exist anymore. They were kind of fragile and they ran a very busy studio and these weren't well maintained. But when I was coming back to when I was doing research in our collections, I saw that we had one of her mobiles in the collection, but it has just been in storage since we acquired it in the 80s and it has never been on view. So bringing it out today is the first time.
Oh, I just got chills. That's so cool. What an amazing story that we happened to have one of these in our collection.
Yeah.
And it's one of the earliest parts of your research.
It is.
Yeah.
Though it's a later work, it was made, so her and her husband, they created a studio called Higgins Glass Studio out of Riverside. And they started creating design wares and all these different colors. And the studio is actually still running. Neither of them are alive. And these mobiles are still being made at that studio, but this one was made while she was still living. So though it's not one of those earliest ones, which as a historian would have loved.
Sure.
But what a treat to be able to honor some of that earliest work that she was doing in the 50s by bringing people into this space with such a beautiful work of color.
It's so incredible. I'm so excited that we get to have it here and it gets to be hung up. And I'm curious, I've hung pieces before.
Yeah.
And depending on the environment, I've had pieces that actually move a little bit. Are you anticipating that this might actually move in the space?
I think so, and I think the best voice to answer that is conservation. So we should let Marisa and Lindsay maybe talk a little bit about that and what you anticipate with this piece.
This mobile is going to hang from a wire, so there will definitely be a little bit of movement. We're going to raise it carefully and very slowly to minimize the movement as we go up, but while it's hanging up there, it will definitely move a little bit.
And how high? Because obviously the height and the way it's displayed is a consideration for the viewership and also for the safety of the object.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as we're installing it, but we need to raise it high enough so it's out of reach from people, because we don't really want to invite any hands touching it.
Yeah.
But obviously we want it low enough so that people can admire it and see it and kind of, you know, interact with it. So it's a conversation that Tami and I will have as we're kind of raising it.
Let me tell you, every piece that we install, this is what it takes.
Yeah.
It takes planning, care, bringing in someone like Lindsay or others from our collections team to really think through everything before something moves. So I'm glad you get to see one moment.
I'm glad that we get to share this moment with a lot of people because, again, installing my own work, it's like I show up and I put it up wherever the space is, however I want it to be. This is a huge undertaking. The scale, like just looking around, I'm seeing things mocked up, you know, to make all of these decisions, and I'm so glad that you do that and not me.
Well, it's with the team.
Yeah.
Straddled with indecision.
How do we feel?
We feel good.
Ready to go?
Good, right? Yeah.
Let's hang it up. Why don't you hang it up? I said us,
We'll
let us.
hang
you
it
should
up.
do it.
We'll hang it up.
Okay.
Maybe stay over here.
I'll watch from wherever you want me to watch from. I'd be happy to. Give me a rubber glove to like play with, and I'll be entertained.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so before we install the object, we're going to prep the space a little bit. Usually when we install a suspended object, we do it when there's nothing underneath it, so no objects in the vitrine below. But because of the design of this exhibition, if we installed the object first, we wouldn't be able to get the plexi vitrine over the objects below. Ready? Just slightly high. Okay, crimp it there. That one's good. Oh God. Right? That's better. All right.
Okay, so now it's up. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
And what I didn't tell you earlier is that actually this whole case is work by Frances Stewart Higgins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so some of these are her earliest pieces. You know, I talked about that first piece of glass that she molded into a ceramic mold and then charted the studio that she went on to do for her career is this little piece over here. And then these are all other experiments that she just did in her Riverside, Chicago studio of playing around with molds and painting with enamels and playing with color in lots of different ways. And so this mobile is a part of this multi-dimensional practice where she was working in many different mediums, from vessels to plates to dishes to mobiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks stunning. The way that it immediately came to life and moved around in the space, and just the way that it has all of this depth and the depth of color and the light in the space is so beautiful, and it's so much better than when it was in the box.
Right, right. I mean, there's something really important to installing, giving something space, and thinking about those sight lines and thinking about how it lives. And when you add color to the mix, there's so much one can do. But I love how it's holding the space here. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
Fun. I'm glad you got to get a sense of what this is like and how these things come together. And most importantly, I love showing the work of my team that is making all of this happen.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's been so enlightening. I hope that I'll be allowed back in the warehouse sometime. I hope that I'll get to see more of these installations as they happen, because it's such a group effort, and to see all of the parts played is so impressive, and it is a monumental effort to make a show like this. So I'm so thrilled that you allowed us in.
Yeah, and more importantly, Michael, come back and celebrate with us. Celebrate all these artists. Francis is one of up to 40, 50 artists that we're showing in this exhibition. So
and how many pieces?
If this was interesting, you should see all of them. There's around 200 objects
yeah.
that are being handled in that care that you saw today.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. Marisa, Lindsay, thank you both so much for allowing us in, leading us on this journey from warehouse to installation. It was so enlightening, and I hope that everyone watching is enjoying this as much as I've enjoyed it, because it's very cool to see how an exhibition like this comes to life and all the work that you both put in to make it happen, and everybody else on your teams as well.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great, so I guess I go back to work now.
Yep, and we have an exhibition to install.
All right, good luck.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay, that was awesome. Such a privilege to get to come see what's happening in this space as they install the exhibition. Huge thanks to the conservators, the preparators, the collections team, the curators for allowing us into this space while they're working on such a massive project. What struck me was that thought, care, collaboration, teamwork, planning for one piece that we just watched is happening for over 200 pieces in this exhibition. So if you want to come see it for yourself, tough stuff, Women in the American Glass Studio, we please encourage and invite you to come visit us here in person at the Corning Museum of Glass. It's going to be a fantastic exhibition. There's so much detail, so much that's worth seeing in person for yourselves. If you have questions about anything, leave them in the comments, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time